I'm sat across from two very, very intelligent people, and unfortunately, the way you're talking is treating people like mugs. You can talk about condemnation all you want. You can talk about reminding Israel of their international obligations all you want. But until you're talking about suspending arms sales to Israel, until the Americans are talking about suspending military aid to Israel, all of that finger wagging in the world will not stop Netanyahu from doing what he wants to do, which is launching an absolutely terrible, abhorrent ground assault on Rafah. The images which are coming out on social media at the moment have been for months from Rafah of children buried under the rubble, body parts blown to smithereens. This is the result of Israel being emboldened and effectively being given a carte blanche to interpret its, in Emily's words from October 2023, its absolute right to self-defense to mean collectively punishing the Gazan people.
Well, Emily?
Well, I think that 2 days, 3 days after the first incursions into Israel, when so many people had been killed and there were so many hostages that had been taken, and we were in a live situation.
Well, and there are still hostages.
And we believed, but they were, yeah. But it was still, there was still fighting going on the ground in Israel. And there were, as far as I understood, there was going to be an attempt to get the hostages back. At that stage, just cut the lights off and so on was the right thing to do. But as I said at the time, and there has been some selective reporting, it absolutely is not within international law to cut off supplies to a nation. So
you were asked specifically about food and water,
yes,
not just the lights,
yes,
and you
yes.
said Israel has an absolute right to defend itself.
And as I also said, as the guy from the UN had said before, I'm sorry for people who hadn't seen the programme, but for the person who was from the UN who was on Newsnight before me had said, within a short period in a war, you can cut off in order to... So essentially, if they were going to go into Gaza to try and get the hostages back, then in that very short period, then it would be right to kind of... and we know that's what Israel has been doing on and off in Gaza anyway. But in this period, that was the thing to do. Not to do it so that you starve people and not to do it so that you cut off their power so that they don't have water. That's, you do it in a short period when you're defending yourself because you have an absolute right to defend yourself. And that's the right thing to do. But it always had to be, as we always said, within the confines of international law.
I think that's a bit like saying, I want to burgle this house, but in a lawful way. I think these two things are completely contradictory.
Not. It's you've got my stuff in your house and I'm going in to get it,
and the last thing that I would say is, I think it is for the birds, the idea that you could not see what would be happening now. What was coming out from Israel in terms of politicians' mouths, the references to Amalek, saying that there are no uninvolved civilians, even in those very, very early days, it was clear that civilians were being considered fair targets. So then when you've got leading politicians saying that the right to self-defense includes cutting off food, includes cutting off water and power, that either means that you were unable to see what millions of other people could see was going to happen, which would make me question the quality of the politicians we have in this country, or there's an element of being disingenuous, where you didn't think you had the political room to say this at the start, but now you're worried about the images coming out.